Welcome to the Fashion Department, a podcast that will explore the world of fashion and how it informs all aspects of life, from dress to lifestyle to food and travel. From stylists to designers to influencers to shop owners, you'll hear the latest scoop du jour. And now let me introduce you to your fabulous host, Tina Bricoli, a Greenwich, Connecticut-based wardrobe stylist and radio show personality. With over 20 years in the fashion industry, Tina will share her take on style, trends, the business of fashion, and her sartorial sense. Here's your host.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Fashion Department. So if you're following along on my social media channels, you may have noticed a few furry things have been featured. Things like a mink vest, a crop sable fur, or a full-length shearling trench coat, one of my favorites, all of which are from the luxury outerwear brand Pologeorgis. So who better than to join me today in studio is Joan Nathenas, the designer of Pologeorgis Furs. Welcome to the Fashion Department, Joan.
Thank you for having me.
So excited for you to be here. Now, last season, your brother was here, and we had Jenny, who's your head of PR, was here. And now we're here with the creative mind. So you are the other end of the business.
Yes.
You're behind the scenes, designing for the family, and you are Nick's sister.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I have lots of things, lots of questions for you. I want to unpack this right away. First of all, tell us a little bit about your role at Pologeorgis, exactly what you do.
Exactly what I do. I develop collections with all my designers. So whoever I'm working with, whether it be Michael Kors, we've worked with Chatteroff Rucci, we've worked with Monse, there's just tons of names.
Okay.
So we work with them constantly on developing their whole collection. We can start from making them muslins, getting them lab dips of all the colors of furs or shearlings or whatever they're working with at the time, even leathers, to like the final product up until it hits runway. And then we also have obviously our own collection. And I work with a stylist and we collaborate and make all our beautiful fur coats that we make.
And because I know you just released a collection, how often do you have your own collections each year?
We make one collection a year, really.
Okay.
Because, we do it all at one time. So we'll do
Right.
like lighter weight fall pieces and heavy winter pieces. We'll develop it at the same time. We'll just have them drop into the store later.
I see. Oh, okay. So we're going to get into, a little bit later, we're going to get into the exact collections and what they include. But I wanted to know, so you went to design school,
Right?
right? You went to FIT?
I went to FIT.
Okay. Did you always know you wanted to be a designer?
No. I started off as an accounting major.
Oh, so as a little girl growing up in a family-run business, did you think like, all right, I'm probably going to work for the family business, or were you like,
I
no
didn't.
way?
Everyone, Nick and my father, they're like, you're just extremely good in math. You should just, they were pushing me to be an accountant. So I did that for like a year, and I'm like, I really hate this.
Oh, funny.
And then I went to FIT, and I would, since it was it's right down the street, I would literally like go to class, go to the office, and before you know it, I was just there all the time working. But I always used to like love to work.
Right.
Like I would go on Saturdays. I would love to go to the office. It was so much fun for me.
Even when you were an accountant? Or you mean once you...
I only went to school for a year for accounting.
Okay.
That's when I transferred out. No, even when I was a kid.
Oh.
So I'd be like, can I come to work on Saturday? If there were like days off from school. And then I thought I was really smart. Me and all my friends when we were in high school were like, let's graduate in January. So we have, the rest of the school year and the summer before we start college. Well, my father laughed at me and was like, you're going to come to work with me now.
Oh, funny. Interesting. He was like, yeah, okay.
So I did. I traveled to Japan with them for like
Oh, wow.
a trade show. It was fun. I just fell into it because I enjoyed it so much.
Right. Well, I'm sure growing up around it your whole life, I guess you're heavily influenced by it. So I feel like you would either go one way or the other, kind of like, yes, I'm in, or no, I want nothing to do with it. It's amazing that the two of you, though, both you and your brother, love it as much, because talking to Nick, there's no question how much he loves what he does. And now talking to you, I also can see that. That's really great. I feel like it might not be that common for both people, in a family-run business.
Well, don't laugh, because we dragged my sister in a few years ago.
Oh.
We didn't drag her in.
Okay.
She came in willingly. She was like, she was an attorney.
Oh.
And then she had her kids, and then she stopped working. And she's like, she started coming in on Saturdays to like help.
Uh-huh.
And then before you know it, now she's there every day too.
It's always good to have an attorney in the family, by the way.
We're always like, Elaine, can you read this? And she's like, I'm not practicing.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was just the two of you. So there's 3 children.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, I'm guessing, so if your earliest memories growing up in the family business were probably that, working on Saturdays and going to work with your dad.
Yeah. We all did.
Yeah. And you traveled a lot as a kid, or was that more when you got older?
For work?
Yeah.
When I got older, it was like 19, 20.
Okay.
Like I would go to trade. I went to some trade. So I definitely did Japan, which I loved, and Hong Kong.
Right.
And then we did some like trade shows in Vegas and Chicago. And I would go and I'd have to model the coats.
Oh, fun. Fun. So what does your wardrobe look like? You must have a gazillion furs. And how does your daughter feel? Do you have one daughter?
I have one daughter.
How does she feel about that?
She definitely likes shearling because she likes it to be more low key.
Right.
She's not like, she used to, like, I think the big thing years ago where all the girls wanted like those fur pom-poms, and she had them hanging off everything.
Right.
But she definitely likes to be warm, so she definitely has like 3 or 4 shearlings or shearling line coats.
And how many do you have?
I don't, real fur, like furry, like minks. I have a few. I pulled everything out from storage.
Okay.
And there were pieces there, and I'm like, I would have like a sheared mink jacket. I had like fur line pieces. I had things I forgot I even had.
Right. So I'm imagining your outerwear closet probably looks like my just normal, like my clothes. I have a gazillion blouses and a gazillion blazers. You probably
maybe not gazillion, but I have a good amount.
I mean, because from over
but
the
even
years,
like there might be a cashmere coat with a fur collar on it.
Right.
There can be like.
You have a wardrobe of furs. What I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
I kind of do.
Yeah. Well,
and I end up wearing the same few pieces all the time.
Isn't that funny how that works, right? So, do you think you have like a sort of a signature aesthetic when you design? Do you kind of always like to do something, or do you just kind of, because I would imagine it depends on what's selling, what sold last season, what's current.
That has a lot to do with it.
has a lot to do with it.
We always try to make some pieces that I love.
Right.
And we always try to make sure we have pieces for almost everybody.
Right.
Like we try to make sure we have the classics. Classics tend to be the best sellers. And,
Right.
we just try to change things with colors. But there's always new styles. There's always new development,
Right.
Like what I love may not be what Jenny loves, but Jenny might have a different opinion on a coat. And I'm like, well, that's a good idea because there are,
Right.
So
I would think that would be a little, well, maybe not difficult, but something you'd have to be very conscious of as a designer, and something that, because you're not designing something that you wouldn't wear. You're not designing like, I don't know, something like a man would wear, like something you would never use or wear. It's something it's a product that you yourself would actually
I would wear anything that.
Right. So how do you, I feel like I would end up designing everything that I like, and then what if it doesn't sell? I'm sure you have to design things that, like you said, maybe you wouldn't wear, but someone else would.
Yeah.
Right?
But
like a mix.
But even when we design things we like, maybe the first sample is the one that's just a little bit more over the top. And then you do, it just, especially now that things are so much more oversized and easier fitting.
Right.
So maybe the first sample, we're like, okay, we make it. We want it to look good in a model. We want it for our shoots. And then we're like, okay, this really is a size large. It's not a small.
Right.
And then we start production fittings, and you tame things down a little bit.
I
It still has the same look and the same overall feel, but
Right.
someone who's 5'10" or 5'11" and a size 2 will look different in a coat than someone who's 5'4".
Right. I didn't think of that. So, an oversized version or boyfriend cut, let's say, is going to look different on me than it would on someone who's very tall.
So that's when we have to really rework after we do like production fittings. We're like, okay, now we need to rework this because the average person is not 5'10".
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Wow. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the different types of furs that you design and that you carry. First one I wanted to talk about was like, because I don't think I knew this until I spoke to Nick, was the difference between a shearling and a fur. So a shearling is not considered fur, right? So the process?
It's not the process. It is a fur.
Okay.
People don't consider it a fur because they feel like it's part of like the lambs and the shearling. So when you get a leather coat, it's all
It's sheared off.
no.
Oh.
It's still part of thing, but it's the byproduct of the animal actually in the end.
Got it. Okay.
So
the process is slightly different.
right. It's
Okay.
definitely tanned different. It's taken care of different. I mean, there's obviously a lot more lamb and sheep and goats out there.
Right. And then the final product, like the coat that I bought, I have proud owner, my first Pologeorgis piece, by the way. So it's like a shorter hair, right? Yeah. Shearling is shorter, which I love. I don't know why. Not that I don't love the minks. I mean, they're all beautiful and gorgeous, but there's something about the shearling I like. Not better. It's just different. It feels. I don't know why.
I think because now like everything is like secular, so like shearling is really on trend. Like everyone loves shearling right now.
That's true.
And there's different versions. There's longer hair ones. There's curlier ones.
Right.
I mean, I love shearling too. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what you have in store. So now, just to refresh all the listeners' memory, you have a showroom in New York City.
Yes.
On 29th Street, right?
Correct.
29th Street between
6th and 7th.
6th and 7th. And you have a boutique in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's on Lewis Street off of Greenwich Avenue. Both places are fabulous. I love both spaces for different reasons. I have to say I love a good showroom, but I'm a stylist and I'm used to like going to showrooms and like pulling for a client. So to me, even if I'm not pulling for a client, I'm in there for just, even if it were just like to say hi, Joan, like, I like that atmosphere. It feels like I'm at work, and I always love when I'm working. I don't know why. Like a store just feels like it's a store, and it's, I'm in and out of stores all the time. And something about a showroom feels very industry, and I like that because it just feels like comfortable to me. And I don't mind, like I've been in showrooms that are, a range of like beautiful, like yours, beautiful sofas and all the furs. And then I've been in showrooms that are, small and you're kind of stepping over things. And I like that too. Like it just feels very like I'm working, But the boutique is very sweet. I love it there. And you have a lot in that boutique.
We do have a lot in there.
You don't realize because it goes back, kind
it's
of
long,
back.
yeah.
So you have all different types of furs, right? And then you have some home goods too, right? Which are like pillows.
Pillows and blankets.
And accessories, right?
We do like scarves and hats and little handbags.
Yep. And the big earmuffs, which I love.
Earmuffs always.
Love the oversized, big, puffy ones. So cute. And then, but if someone wanted to go shopping for a fur, they don't need an appointment at the Greenwich store, right?
No.
But they do need an appointment for the showroom in the city.
Right.
Okay, so they can come anytime. And what would if someone walks in and says, it's my first fur, I don't know what I want. Like, would you guide them towards something? Would you just ask them questions?
We usually start off by asking questions.
Okay.
And you want to know, what they want to spend sometimes. Because if they want to be in a shearling price point, then I want to start there.
Okay.
But most of the time when they come into the showroom for their first fur, they already know what they're looking for. Not know what they're looking for, but they usually know that, like, I'm buying my first mink coat.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
We always, our quality is like we have top quality mink. So we always try to gear them. Like sometimes they'll be like, oh, I love this white. I'm like, okay, is this your first coat? Because if it's your first coat, white isn't the way to go.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you can't use it as much. And you try to like navies, browns, blacks, grays.
Yeah.
Are just a lot easier that they can get more use out of it. And then they start building up their
collection. That makes sense. And then from there, what's the process? So if they pick something that is off the rack, we can alter it. We can, shorten it. We'll monogram it. We can do adjustments to the fit. Okay.
That's one way to go.
Okay.
Some people want the whole, like they want to look at the pelts. They want to pick which exact skins are being used and which pelts are being used in their coat.
Right.
We'll do a muslin fitting. So, you can be like, I like this coat, but I want this collar and I want sleeves like this.
And really build it.
They can build their own coat. And we make like a cotton canvas coat for them to try on. And we do a fitting and we fit it exactly to them.
Okay, before you put it all together.
Before you make the fur.
Wow. And then so I was in the showroom. I was fortunate enough to have been given a tour by Jenny. And I got to see in the back.
You went to the factory.
Oh my God, it was so cool. I saw the craftsman, just sitting there by hand sewing the pelts together. I mean, it was just, I almost had chills because I was like, this is really cool that in this day and age, this is how it's done.
And it hasn't changed.
And it's beautiful. Like, why change something that works so well,
Yeah.
It's
You
really.
can't really change it.
No. It's just, you hear about things changing all the time, people being replaced by machines or because there's a faster, better way. And in this case, there's not. The
It's
best
just
way.
craftsmanship.
And he was literally sitting there, and then all the ladies were doing the sewing and sewing different things, whatever.
And they
were doing.
hand sew all the linings in.
Yes.
It's all just done.
It's amazing. So when you see the final pieces, so I'm guessing you see each piece that you've designed. What are your thoughts? Like, are your initial thoughts like, I love this, or are you like, no, I need to tweak this? Like,
Sometimes you look at something and you're like, oh my God, this wasn't one of my favorites, but I love this. Or the opposite way around.
Right.
You're like, I thought this was going to be better. Okay. And then, but then you're like, okay, so now let's take the collar off and let's refix it. And we always will tweak.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, because in my mind, that's how things, even when I'm putting looks together for clients or even myself, in my mind, I know the silhouette and it's this. And then I put it on or they put it on. I'm like, oh, no. That's not what I thought it was going to be. Redo. Or the same thing. I'll try. It's like seeing something on a hanger with no hanger appeal.
And then you put it on and it's great.
It's stunning. And you're like, this happens. I'll show my husband something. I'll be like, look at this dress. And he's like, and he always gives me this look like, uh-huh. And I'm like, you don't like it, do you? And he's like, well, if you like it, I like it. He gives the right answer. Yeah. But I'm like, it doesn't have any hanger. And then I'll put it on and I'll say, wow, that looks so different.
You know what? It's a lot of that. Like I know, and I don't work a lot in the showroom with clients. Like I said, I'm more on the back end.
Right.
But the minute you put a coat on, they're like, oh no, you have to put it on them.
Yeah.
And once they put it on, usually what we realize is after speaking to somebody, it's one of the first 2 coats we bring out for them to try on. It's different in the city too. Like so in the showroom, they're coming, specifically to buy a coat.
Right.
So you have, you speak and you start pulling out what you feel is what they're looking for. And sometimes, usually it tends to be one of my favorites, which I always start with one of my favorites.
That's funny. Okay.
But in Greenwich, it's a lot of browsing. Like people will come in, they look around, they try on. Sometimes they just want to shop and then they come back. It's just, it's different because that's like a store. They just want to come in and stroll it and have fun.
Right.
I've had girls come in after lunch and they're trying on, having the time of their life.
Right.
And they do buy, but it's just funny because they're like, oh, and then, we've never seen you here before.
Right. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of that because the boutique in Greenwich is still fairly new.
Right.
And you're right. It's probably a slightly different customer because it's with a bunch of other stores. It's right off of Greenwich Avenue, so there's probably lots of browsing and people finding you. I would imagine that. Me personally, I don't know if I would just browse in I would feel almost bad if I didn't buy something. Like I feel like if I was going to a fur store, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to buy something. As opposed to just
But I mean, we do.
right?
We have the hair clips and people come around. It's fun to browse what's in there.
Right. Oh, for sure. And again, like I said, I didn't know that you carried all these other things like the fur throws and the pillows and the... Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about some of your favorites or some of your favorite people that you've worked with. So I want to start with the collection that's in stores now. Who is that with? And tell us a little bit about that. Like, what was the inspiration behind that? The collaboration that you have with a very pretty model.
With Kelly.
Yes.
We've worked with Kelly for a few years now. So Kelly always has she's very all-American and Californian. And so that her themes always work around a very casual kind of lifestyle.
This is Kelly Ben Simone.
Sorry.
It's okay. If listeners don't know, it's Kelly Ben-Simone, who was a model her whole life.
Model,
right?
editor.
Right?
She is an author. She writes about like how...
And she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I feel
and now
like,
she's on top of the world with real estate. So
right. So you designed it more like around her aesthetic.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I've seen these pictures where she's just like, looks like she's just hanging out in her kitchen or wherever
Right,
she,
yeah, she is.
And,
And it's very casual. And,
Yeah.
and she even takes pieces that she's like, I want a little dressier piece. But she's still like on a bicycle and the sheiling's adorable and it almost like has like pick stitching. And, she just throws it all together and she
looks so great.
always looks great.
And this is, you've done several collections with her, right?
This, I think, was our 6th one.
Wow. Okay. So that was designed and that's out now. And then a new collection will come out next year?
Next season, yeah.
I see. And so you'll be designing that? Okay.
Yeah.
And again, do you draw inspiration from?
I draw information, like old magazines.
Oh.
Just all we do is search, we search the internet. We love to go through our vault because
Right.
there are a lot of great vintage pieces in our vaults. Like you might have your grandmother's coat and people save them and eventually they start reworking them. And I love looking through all the old furs.
Yeah.
And truthfully, we have a pretty big archive because we've been in business for over 60 years.
Right. Wow.
So we don't have the actual archive pieces, but we have the images and sketches.
Right.
And, we always look back. And it's amazing when I'm like, wow, that was so good. We should really remake this. And I'm looking back like 25 years ago.
Right. So is there a time, like I'm guessing you have like a calendar and a timeline
Now's
of when
the
you're
time
doing
to
that.
start.
Is that what you do? Do you take a time where you're just like, it's inspiration time? Do you draw? Do you sketch at all?
I sketch.
Oh, I love how. Okay, so.
But now I sketch a lot quicker because now I'm like, oh, we're just going to use this. Like, in the past,
Right.
I don't even go back to the 90s, but in the past,
Right.
I used to sketch things and Nick would be like, okay, we need some coats. He'd be like, we need to have, say, a chinchilla collar. We need a coat with a chinchilla collar. We need this. And I would just sit there and just sketch all day long.
Right,
and
right.
giving
Wow.
images for him to get ideas. Now it's kind of like I pull out my pictures from the past. I'm like, I like this idea, but maybe we should make it,
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Why, you're just kind of rejudging, what you've done. If you need to make tweaks or changes, you're kind of, at the end of the day, it's still a piece of outerwear. So it's
Right.
not going to be, it's always going to have 2 arms, right?
Right.
And maybe a collar, maybe not, and then a certain length, right? And then whether it's snaps or buttons or
Yeah.
ties, right? I would imagine. So there's certain things that are always going to be consistent.
Always gonna be consistent.
So then you design and then you show it to Nick, or how does the process work?
It depends on which collection. If it's like the shearlings and say outerwear, sometimes he looks, sometimes I just start making. But when it comes to like the minks, even when I do design and I start making the patterns, he'll be like, that's maybe just a little too much. He'll tries to tone me down a bit.
Okay. Because he's more the sales side of the
Right.
business. Right. Which is why I was asking. I was like, I wonder how this dynamic works. Who's older, by the way?
He's older.
Okay. I thought so, but I didn't want to assume.
So sometimes he's like, yeah, that's really beautiful. He's like, but somebody has to buy it. And he's like, it's not an easy piece to wear. I'm like, yeah, but we need something special for our campaign.
Yes.
And then
right.
he looks at me and he's like, okay. And I'm like,
All right.
but he'll like chop me down a little bit. Like I can't make as much as I want. But
Right,
in a
right.
way, he's right.
Right.
Because I'll be like, I want all the intricate intarsia pieces. I want to make I made 2 this year where they cut tiny little boxes and they make the mink look like tweed. Because
that's one of my favorites.
it's not easy.
Not quite in my budget yet, but I have my eye on that. That's the one that it's like black and white or like a green.
There's like gray. I have 2 versions. So there's one that's like pale ivories with grays.
Yes.
And then there's one that's like brown and white.
Brown and white, yeah.
And
I
a
saw
little.
that. That is stunning, that piece.
I mean, it's just a lot of work. They literally have to sit there and make all these little boxes.
But that is stunning, because it looks like, you've made it look like it's a pattern. Well,
Right.
it is a pattern,
It is a
but
pattern.
it looks like a texture, like its own, like a plaid. But
And-
you made that.
And every little piece is cut and sewn together. So if you look at the back side, you'll see all these tiny like 3/8 inch boxes or 1/2 inch boxes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, if you're listening to this, you have to check out this coat that we're talking about. So it's on the website, Pologeorgis.com. Maybe I have to feature it somehow. I'm going to feature it on my Instagram. I'll post a picture of it. 'Cause this coat is so good. Does it have a name?
I'd have to look it up.
Okay,
I don't remember.
But it's mink.
It's mink.
Yeah.
So there's one in the mink jacket section. There's one in the
Okay,
mink
you
coat
have to see what we're talking about because it's just that amazing. All right, so that's the process of designing, and then it goes into production, and then you do a photo shoot. Is this where the photo shoot comes in?
We do a photo shoot. So
Okay.
we do an in-studio photo shoot,
Okay.
which is our campaign. So we can make sure if we do ads or just like the main page of our website, we want to have, pretty
Okay.
pictures. And then we do a social media shoot. So the piece is just,
And then are you still doing collabs with other designers as well? Because that's kind of where.
Yes. But when I do work with other designers, it's like I'll make all of, Michael Kors' shearlings.
Right.
And I'll make leathers for Monse or shearlings for Monse. So
Okay.
I do, but it's not a collaboration for my website really, or for
Right.
my brand. It's
Right.
what I do with them.
It's separate, but it's different, I'm guessing, from your collection.
Totally
Because
different.
they obviously
They have their own aesthetics.
they have their own aesthetic, but you're doing the designing. Yeah.
I'll do the development,
Got it.
and then they're their own designer, so they do the
Right.
designing.
Right. I always wondered about that. Like, how does that work? Because it's like a designer working with a designer, but it's your piece, but it's their collection. I always
Yes.
wondered about that. Is that difficult or?
No, because everyone always has their own aesthetic, and I can be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" But then when they put it together, I'm like, "Oh my God, that's really good."
Has anyone ever asked you to do something like outlandish where you're like, no, I can't do that with a fur?
I always say yes,
And then?
and then Nick's like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Well, we have to." He's like, "You got to cut." Like I remember we were doing intarsia coats for Michael Kors.
Okay.
And that's like all the cut and sew and mixing up the different colors, and there's a lot. I mean, it becomes very expensive.
Right.
And Nick's like, "You can't." I'm like, "Nick, we have to." And he's like, "Do you know what that's going to cost?" And I'm like, "No."
No.
I'm
No.
like, "No, but it's going to be beautiful." And then he's like, "You got to cut down the flowers." And I'm like, "Okay, let me speak to them." Because it was like a big floral coat.
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
"Can we just blow it up a little bit and make a little less?" And Nick would be like, "Oh, I want to do it this way." And I'm like, "No." I'm like, we're gonna cut them down, but we're gonna make it beautiful.
You have to
make sure you have to find like a good balance. And Nick's
Right.
good at balancing me that way because I can always go over the top.
You're a designer. Of course, I would expect nothing less. Okay, so love this. All right, so we're almost out of time, believe it or not, but I want to end by, if someone is looking for their first piece, give us one tip that someone could, if you're buying their first luxury fur, like what's something they should keep in mind when looking?
That if it's their first piece, they want longevity out of it. Because truthfully, my sister just remodeled my mother's mink coat. So if you get quality and you get something that you can wear for a long time, the style can carry, like your coat can carry you forever.
Yes.
Truthfully.
Yes.
So I think for your first piece, you need to go into quality and a good, easy style.
So something more classic, maybe not so on trend.
Right.
Right. That you'll.
That you're not going to look at in 5 years going, now what am I going to do with this? Because maybe you haven't been able to buy it or you didn't want to buy another coat.
Right. Okay.
I mean, your first coat can last you.
Well, I always say that it's like when you're building a wardrobe, you got to have the basics first.
Right.
And I always say that's where you need to invest the money. The black blazer, the trouser pant, the
Right.
suit. That's where, and then all the other little things you can fill in or cut corners or whatever you need to do or, work on a budget. But you have to invest in the basics because they'll last you and it's just worth it.
They last you.
They last.
I mean, I love when clients come in and they're like, "This was my grandmother's coat. Can I fix it?" And I'm like, "Let's take a look."
Love that. And love you. All right, Joan, thank you so much for joining me in the fashion
Thank you.
department. And Joan will be back, so stay tuned. We're going to have part 2 of this shortly, so we'll see you soon. Thanks, Joan.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining me in the fashion department. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more inspiration and fashion content, check out my website and follow along on Instagram at Tina_the_fashion_stylist. And a special thanks to the Factory Underground Studio for recording and producing this show. See you next time.